Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shubhra Padvi. Thank you, Professor Udaynarayan Singh. And also, at the outset, I would like to thank the Amity University for giving me this opportunity. I feel honored. Thank you. My today's talk is, the name is, title is Sylhet Nagari, the shaping of a selfhood. Sylhet Nagari is the name of a script. It's named after the name Devanagari. And the script was the vehicle of a literary tradition composed in a dialect of Bangla and current in the Sylhet region in the northeast of Bangladesh. Now, Bangla or Bengali, this language is spoken in Bangladesh, and in India, it's the regional and the official language of West Bengal, Assam, and Tripura. In the world, it is spoken by 215 million of people, and it occupies the 7th or 8th position in terms of its speaker strength. And it has a range of dialects. Professor Sumiti Kumar Chatterjee divided the dialects in 5 broad groups, which are Rahi, Jharkhandi, Barindri, Bengali, and Kamrupi. And each of these categories contains a set of dialects. So that way, this Sylhet Nagari is also one of the dialects of Bangla. Sylhet, Kachar, and the adjoining Trans-Meghna region of Northeast India together present a distinct culture zone, which has the following features. Bangla is the predominant language in this area. It is situated in the borderlands of Burma in the east, Southeast Asia, and Yunnan, that is southwestern China. In the course of history, this region has experienced extensive human migration that includes the Nagara Brahmanas, the Austrics, the Dravidians, and the Mongoloids from different directions. As a result, the region obtained a multiracial, multicultural, and multireligious character. In addition, the region shows intermingling and amalgamation of diverse cultural elements. At the same time, it presents deep traits of acculturation, adaptation, accommodation, assimilation, and also identity or selfhood formation. The current talk is a part of a project taken up by Professor Anuradha Chanda, and it was supported by UGC Delhi, the British Library London, and Maulana Azad Institute of Asian Studies, Kolkata. The chief objectives of the project were to locate texts written in Sylhet Nagari, retrieve them, and archive them in digital form. I too played a small role in this project. I offered the linguistic analysis of the dialect, and in doing that, the script too came within the purview of my analysis. Now, the Sylhet Nagari, it's a script. It's evolved between the 14th and the 17th century. It's also known as Musalmani Nagari, Jalalabadi Nagari, Phul Nagari, etc. Total number of scripts retrieved till now is 103. The oldest literary document belonged to 1860, while the latest one, 1962. The texts were also colloquially called Devanagari Puthi. But at a formal level, the script is known as Sylhet Nagari. Now, this Sylhet Nagari, it's a script for a dialect. That is the uniqueness of it. That is a script developed for a dialect, though the mother language, which is Bangla, it had its own script. Time and again, in various administrative documents and linguistic literature, the mention of Sylhet Nagari script along with this variety of language has occurred. Among the administrative documents, I may mention Sir George Grierson's Linguistic Survey of India and Assam District Gazetteers of 1905. And then among the linguistic literature, Suniti Kumar Chatterjee mentioned this in his book, The Origin and Development of Bengali Language. Sukumar Sen in his book, History of Bengali Literature. Manirujjaman in his book, Upabhasha Chorchar Bhumika, and so on. Even beyond the field of linguistics, also it is mentioned in many other documents. For example, Padmanath Bhattacharya wrote an essay on Sylhet Nagari, which was published in the Journal of Bangla Sahitya Parishad in Bengali year 1315, which is around 1908. Now I shall discuss 5 features relevant to the evolution of Sylhet Nagari script. These features include geographical, political, historical, religious, and linguistics. The geographical location of Sylhet, I start with this. The Sylhet division, it is situated in the northeastern part of Bangladesh. It is bound by Meghalaya in the north, Assam in the east, Tripura in the south, and Netrokona, Kishorganj, and Brahmanbaria, that is Dhaka and Mymensingh in the west. The Sylhet division consists of 4 districts: Sylhet, Sunamganj, Maulavi Bazar, and Hobibganj. It has a remarkably diverse topographic structure. Northeastern and southeastern parts are mountainous, while the middle, western, and southwestern regions slope down, forming an extensive marsh, locally known as Haur, and consists of a network of big and small rivers. Now, among these rivers, the chief one is the Barak River. At some point, Barak bifurcates into 2 streams, Shurma and Pushiara, which have many tributaries and offshoots. All of these merge together and form the river Bhaleshwari, which flows into Meghna, which is a confluence of the Ganges and Brahmaputra. The monsoons, too, are longer in this region compared to other parts of Bengal. This too rich network of rivers, along with long-staying monsoon, keep the Sylhet Kachar plains submerged underwater for about 5 to 7 months a year, and during this period, the area loses contact with the rest of the world. The hills, river basins, tropical forests, oxbow lakes, and low-lying floodplains, the marsh, altogether isolate this region, and this natural isolated, nature-based isolation give rise to some sort of insularity, which is reflected in the human psyche, indigenous culture, and literature. However, the network of rivers not only isolates the region, but also provide a strong connectivity that linked the region to the Indo-Gangetic Valley, to the Bay of Bengal, and thereby made it a part of the Indian Ocean trade system. This way, from the very early times, this region had exposure to the outer world beyond the seas. In addition, extensive land routes across the mountains connected the regions to its adjoining areas and Southeast Asian countries like China, Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, Burma, etc. This happened through overland trade. The Moroccan scholar traveler Ibn Battuta mentioned the Chittagong, Sonargaon, and Sylhet route. These connections facilitated the demographic diversity of this region. We shall discuss it shortly. Now, the political aspect. Politically and administratively, this region had an unsteady status, sometimes being a part of Assam and other times a part of Bengal. In the earliest days, it was known as Srihatta and was a part of the first kingdom of Assam, Pragjyotisha. Later in the 7th century, it became a part of Kamrupa. Next, for some time, it was a part of Samatata, other times a part of Harikela, etc. In the mid-11th century, Srihatta was an independent kingdom also. For some time, it was under the rule of Arakan kings. In the 14th century, it was under the Muslim rule of Bengal, Bengal Sultanate, and in the 17th century, under the Mughals of Delhi. In the 18th century, it came under the British rule as a part of Bengal province. But in 1874, the Sylhet region was tagged with Kachar and formed the administrative division of Surma Valley under the Chief Commissioner of Assam. Finally, in 1947, on the eve of independence, this division too was partitioned. The larger part of Sylhet went with Pakistan, that is East Pakistan, while a small part was tagged to Kachar and incorporated within the state of Assam in India. As regards the history of this region, ancient Sylhet was a port town on sea, having marine trades with the Middle East and also connected to many parts of Southeast Asia through overland trades through extensive land routes. Both of these facilitated migrations from all directions into this region. The Ostrix came from the north, Dravidians from the south, Mongoloids from the east and northeast. The Ostrix were the first settlers, and their trace can still be found in the Kuls, Mundas, and Santal inhabitants of this area. Then came the Dravidians, and they had a relatively higher level of civilization. Then came the hordes of Indo-Mongoloids known as Kiratas. As a result of this ethnic migration, the region is marked for a hybrid population of Austric, Dravidian, Aryan, Sino-Tibetan, Negrito lineages, and also it became a home for tribal culture. And of course, for mixed culture, rich in elements from diverse lineages. Such elements heavily contributed to the religious life and practice of this region. From the western border, entered into this region the Aryan elements in the 7th century. The Nagara Brahmanas came from Gujarat. They were granted freehold lands in Sylhet. They organized the local people for clearing the forest and introducing plough cultivation. With them started the Aryanization of this region. Both the sides, the locals and newcomers, preferred convergence rather than conflict. Thus, acculturation began. Another group of Brahmins came from Mithila in Bihar from west. They introduced the ritualistic part of the Brahminical culture in Sylhet. Gradually, two sects, Vaishnava and Shaiva, flourished in Sylhet. Before the arrival of the Aryan Brahmins, Buddhism prevailed in this region at least since the 6th century AD. The rulers of Samatata, Harikela were all patrons of Buddhism. Even the independent Srihatta of the mid-11th century was a Buddhist kingdom. Buddhism flourished in this region under the prolonged Sino-Tibetan influence. It hosted even the Tantric Buddhism and Natha Yogic cult. The native Buddhists accepted and tolerated the newcomer Aryan Brahmins, granted them land, and thus acculturation and accommodation took place. Further, in the medieval period of West Asian Islamic elements, Arabic, Persian, Turkic, Pathan, and Afghan, were added to this diverse racial, cultural, and religious mix. Srihatta was in contact with Islam from very old days through trade to Arab merchants, but neither neither affected the life nor did it feed the process of the spread of Islam in this region. The process of spread of Islam was historically linked with the coming of the Sufi saint Hazrat Shah Jalal and his 360 followers from Mecca via Delhi and Dhaka, along with whom the Sufi Islam entered the region in 1303. The followers spread out at different parts of this region, and the first Islamic communities began to form around these Sufi saints. However, according to some historians, the spread of Islam and growth of Islamic communities took quite some time and began only in the 17th, 18th century, when extensive land grants were made to the religious gentry, a large number of whom were the followers of Islam. The purpose of land grants were to clear forests and for agriculture. Linked to this, gradually Muslim communities developed around the shrines and the religious personalities who received land grants for their sustenance. These communities originated from the local people who were organized for the purpose of cleaning up the forest for agriculture. In this process, they naturally came under the influence of Islam, its faith, practice, and culture. Their being and becoming a Muslim presents a rich history of acculturation, accommodation, and assimilation of ideas. For example, the Sufi variety of Islam of this particular region presents a lot of non-Brahminical religious elements. The process of acculturation, accommodation, and assimilation led to creative adaptation to based on dynamic and innovative ideas and practices. One of the innovative creations were the creation of an alternative script of the Bangla language, and that is the Sylhet Nagari script. Now, I shall discuss about the language and the script in a very short, brief manner, mainly on the basis of one text that was retrieved and an edited version of it was published. It's this text. It's called Sylhet Nagarir Pehla Kitab O Doikhura Rag. That is the first book of Sylhet Nagari and the songs of Doikhura. Now this Pehla Kitab, this was first published in 1929 or 1930. The language belongs to the early time of the modern stage of Bengali. It reflects a composite nature. This text is basically a primer. Now, all the texts retrieved, that is written in this Sylhet Nagari script, are written in verse. The composers are Muslims. Consumers are Muslims, mainly the marginal sectors, and publishers are both Hindu and Muslim. Now, in Calcutta, in the Shialda area, there were three publishers, Islamia Press, General Printing Press, and Hamidi Press. They used to publish the materials in this written in this Sylhet Nagari script. And these books, and in Sylhet, two publishers, that is Islamia Press. It actually Islamia Press shifted from Calcutta to Sylhet, and Sharoda Press. And these books that they published contain publication list and advertisement. Now, these publication lists and advertisements, they testify for a fairly large market of these literature with active demand and supply chain. Now, from these texts, I analyze the linguistic features of the language. We couldn't do anything about the phonetics, that is the pronunciation part of the text, but phonology, that is how many sounds were there, how many, and their combinations, etc., could be traced partly. In morphology, morphology is the word formation process, and lexeme, that is the information about word. Those parts also we could analyze. And syntax part, that is sentence structure part, could not be done because all the texts are written in verse language, and verse language do not follow the word order of the prose language. So we couldn't make any comment on the syntax part. And pragmatics, that is the contextual relevance of the topic, that was also taken up. Now, the phonology part shows that there are at least 34 distinctive sounds, 27 consonant sounds, and 5 vowel sounds. Diphthongal vowels were there, no nasalization was there, and no conjunct sound was there. The morphological part says that grammatically it had a very rich morphology. That is, it has a very rich verbal conjugation, declensional pattern. We could trace at least 80 verb roots in a single text. Then it had non-finite verb system, which had some 4 types: finite verb system, then tense aspect, 7 types of tense and aspects, then 3 persons. But as regards the second person, that is tu, tum, up system of our language, only tum category was found, not the tu or the up system. Then it had causative, compound verb, denominal verb, etc., etc., etc. Now, all these morphological parts testify the fact that this particular variety was a proper dialectal variety like any other dialect. It was not something like a marginal language like Pidgin or Creole. Then the lexeme, that is the words. Words came from 3 chief sources: Arabic, Persian, and Sanskrit, and some Hindi words were also there. They were nativized, their pronunciation was nativized, simplified, like putra becoming putura, or stri becoming tiri. Then consonants were replaced by vowels, which is also another type of simplification. For example, Amavasya becoming Awisha. Then difficult sounds were replaced by simple sound, like Persian word Khwaish became Khahesh, or Zikr Persian word becoming Zikir. So this type of simplification was there. Then pragmatics, that is the subject matters covered 6 categories. Islamic rituals and code of conduct, including lives of the people and saints, then love songs and love stories, social issues within the Muslim society, commentaries on natural disasters and social calamities, metaphysical and spiritual, and primer and Baul and Vaishnava Sahajiya philosophy. Now about the script. As I told earlier that this is a script for a dialect, which is very unusual. We don't find a script for a particular dialect. And it has surrounding scripts like Bangla, then Devanagari, brought by the North Indian priests, then Kaithi Nagari, brought by the Maithili Brahmins, then Parso-Arabic came with Saint Shah Jalal, Mewari script of Tibet, connected to Buddhism. Now, a few points about the Nagari script. Actually, the name came from Devanagari, the Nagari part. It was written from left to right, but the page arrangement were right to left. And it follows the order and coding of Devanagari, but rejects extra characters. Extra characters in the sense, suppose in Bangla, in writing we have 3 shas, sa, sha, and sha. But in pronunciation we have only 1. But in spelling we have to remember which sha to use. Or we have 2 nas, na and na. But in pronunciation we have only 1 na. That is why when the Hindi speakers pronounce Ganesh, we say Ganesh. So all these extra symbols were dropped. So the script was made very simple. Then absence of awe. Awe in the Indic languages in the eastern part of India, that is Assam, Assamese, Odia, and Bangla has awe, while Hindi and other languages have a. Now, there was no symbol for awe in this script because all the symbols inherently has awe. So it was dropped. It is a reformed script and it's highly user-friendly. And because of dropping of these extra symbols, redundant symbols, the spelling system became very, very user-friendly. I can show you the script. Okay. And this script, it reflects language planning. Language planning involves conscious and controlled steps for developing a language or parts of a language. The script reflects conscious and controlled steps involved in its development to achieve economy, as there are no redundant character, simplification, it has spelling, pronunciation, and high learnability, which help the spread of literacy and also of Islam. Some linguistic logic for this script are the architects cleverly bypassed clashes with other scripts in the surrounding by not accepting the symbols from any of them. They invented the symbols. Rationally, they inclined towards the Devanagari for other purposes. Other purposes meaning the order and coding. As the language was a variety of Bangla, intelligently they identified the sound letter mismatch areas to remove complexity, logically dropped awe, the redundant symbol to economize, and efficiently simplified the orthography to popularize the literature through the script. Now, the domain of use, origin of this script is spatially linked to Maulavi Bazar, Karimganj, Sylhet, but it was used widely by the converted rural Muslims, especially those living in the social margins of Sylhet and Kachar. It is a vehicle of a genre of Bangla literature of that region in 18th and 19th century, and the literature was verse literature. On also vehicle of religious and literary commentaries in Bangla, and it was also used for signatures on official documents. Now the question comes, why was it created at all when so many options were around? At least 5 scripts were around. Emergence of a new script in a multiracial, multicultural, multi-religious space is an indicator of the formation of a distinct selfhood or identity. But why was that needed? Some plausible views are there. Like one view says, literature may be a creative expression of the acculturation process emerging out of the encounter of the local indigenous culture with that of Perso-Islamic. However, the question cannot be addressed in simple terms of Hindu-Muslim divide, as the close reading of the text show that the users, though Muslims, had undergone a long tradition of diverse religious experiences through ages. For example, there are ample, many times mention of Vrindavana, Hari, Kaliya, that is Krishna, Yamuna river, unfulfilled love of Radha, etc. Now, even if it is if arose out of this acculturation, what does it signify? Does it signify a protest? A protest against the dominant Islamic tradition of purity, which insists that Islam can be preached and practiced only through Arabic. A protest by the new followers of Islam who did not want to give away their Bengali identity? Or does it indicate a subversion of the Brahminical system that claims that Devanagari could be used only by the Brahmins? A subversion that shows that a script closely linked to it can be used to express Islam and also the Muslim identity. According to a popular view, the script was popular among women and people belonging to the lower strata of the society, which implies a kind of marginalization. But the way the script was crafted reflects a high intellectual ability. Another view suggests only 2 segments of the society might be in need for such an insular script. One group are the Sufis or Peers, on whom Vaishnava Sahajiya tradition exerted such a strong influence that they drifted away from original Iranian Sufi tradition, and as a result, they developed a new form of devotional literature, which they intended to keep secret from the Muslim orthodoxy. And the second group are the Muslim female folk, mostly converts, who were accustomed to a ritual life where Panchali and religious narration played a major role. Panchali is something compared to Hanuman Chalisa. Our linguistic observations go for this view that it arose out of acculturation and may be crafted by the Sufi peers and maintained by the women and marginalized people, Muslim people, converted Muslim people. Thank you.
I would like to request Professor Yuvan Singh, Dean of Faculty of Arts, to have a reflection of this lecture.
The main issue that I wanted to raise is it's a very interesting description that you have come up with of the entire space, where you had Gujarati people going there and settling down. people from Mithila going and settling down. They're predominantly Muslims, but then they're also worshippers of Krishna, and they've had a lot of contribution to medieval Bengali literature. And we also know that currently there's a very strong segment of Siletis in London, in particular in UK.
Yeah.
Very strong. They're very strong, and they're very successful in business and also in profession. And they have a separate identity. They think they are very different. So, what is the status of these people in Bangladesh's own governance and Bangladesh's own you call it politics or you call it intermixture, you call it cultural exchange? Where do they stand currently?
The thing is, in SOAS there is a department of Bengali, and there by Bengali they understand the Sileti variety of Bengali. So even I have seen the speakers of other varieties in Bangladesh, they sort of sometimes tease the Sileti, saying that, okay, you say yours is the only variety of Bangla. So,
True.
that's the thing.
But in today's Bangladesh, are they treated separately or are they treated as part of general Bangla cultural milieu?
I think it should be general Bangla cultural value, but the thing is, Bangla is one of the regional languages in India, whereas it's the national language of Bangladesh. So it enjoys many advantages, privileges, and they also contribute a lot to the field of, especially technology, building of Bangla softwares and other things. Their contribution is much more than the contributions of the
Other
Western
region,
side. Yeah,
other region. True.
yeah.
I mean, actually, I have had personal experience of being in Sylhet. Actually, I visited Sylhet, and had interacted with them and delivered lectures. In fact, whereas in other cities of Bangladesh, the lectures were attended to by a few hundred people, in Sylhet, practically 1,500 people attended the lecture. I mean, they are so interested in language and culture matters and so sensitive about it that they came in very large number in government college in Sylhet. And very interesting questions, and the interactions were very lively there. So I have a very fond memory of Sylhet, both in terms of their cultural food habits and other things, as well as in terms of their hospitality and their sensitivity and commitment towards language. So I think that is very strong. And in fact, it is unfortunate that today we could not have the PowerPoint presentation because those who are listening to this talk were deprived of seeing the very interesting difference between the Bangla writing system, the Nagari writing system, and the Sylheti Nagari writing system. They're completely, very different from one another. And in technology in particular, this becomes a great challenge for people who are writing this script using the modern technology. I think so. Anyway, if there are some other questions, Dr. Subro, you can take them. You can invite others to ask questions.
You're not audible, Dr. Patil.
Now,
Yes, yes.
Professor Shiparna Das from University of Hyderabad, she has a question like, she would like to know about more about the protest and representative that she was talking about. That means ma'am was talking about, right? New script.
Yeah, why new script, right?
Yeah, what is this new script? I mean, is it about the Sylheti script, Sylheti Nagari?
Yeah, it's about Sylheti Nagari. Is there an element of protest? Why do they have to have separate script?
Okay, these are some guessworks. In something like they wanted to have their own identity, and they are converted Muslims. So they were used to this Vaishnava culture mainly for ages, and they became Muslim, but they couldn't give up their ways of life, their habits, their practices. So that is why we wanted to keep that also, which was not allowed that way um, in the Orthodox Muslim tradition. So they they used this trick, but the development was by someone else, maybe the uh, Peets or Sufis, who also were very much influenced by the Vaishnava Sahajiya faith and thoughts. That is why they also needed to keep something secret. They also liked some parts and wanted to incorporate those parts in their own faith and practices, but that may not be acceptable by the Orthodox Muslims. That is why they also wanted to keep it as a secret. So they needed to invent they needed to do something, and that will be invented this script. And it was very easy to learn because it had very simple type of spelling system, simple type of orthography. So it was very easy for to use, user friendly, so people could learn it for the literacy purpose or for the spread of Islam.
Now,
Yes.
with the permission of Professor Yuvan Singh, I would like to share some views of mine, if you permit me. If you permit me,
Yes, sure.
sir.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
During my tenure to Maulana Abul Kalam Azad Institute, I've been to Bangladesh. There is a very famous research institute called Bati Ghor. Even there, I came to know that this Sylhet Nagari script has been intentionally demolished. I don't know what is it true or not.
I don't know. Like, I mean, among many questions which are yet to be addressed,
Okay.
two of them are why why did it vanish, sort of, and second is, was it silenced?
And another, as Bangladesh, they have their own center for Chinese language testing. So if they have collaboration with CRI, China Radio International, whatever things has been translated from Chinese to Bengali, it's been translated into Sylheti language. I don't know, either they have called it as a Bengali, New Bengali, or kind of thing. So their thing has been in Sylheti style. I don't know why. So if you can have something.
Actually, I have seen people talking with uh, people from other areas. When they talk to the people from Sylhet area, often they say that you people want to establish your variety as a standard one. Actually, maybe these people who come from Sylhet, they have deep feelings for their language, and they work for their language also technologically. So maybe that is why they are more equipped than others. So strength is more on their part.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. There's another question from Orti Ghosh. As
Yes.
she wrote, it seems that Sylheti Nagari were created as an assertion of non-mainstream varieties against the so-called standard. In the beginning, probably an assertion of non-Hindu and non-Vaishnava identity. In that context, how can we interpret the renewed interest in the script?
It was created as a marginal variety, and it lived as a marginal variety throughout. That's true.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else for having their questions? Okay. So, sir, if you have something, you can.
No, you can now offer vote of thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's been a very fascinating and engaging session. Thank you, ma'am. So indulge me for 3 more minutes because it's not just the coordinator, it's a team behind me whom you haven't heard of, who is actually put this webinar together. Firstly, I would like to express my heart gratitude Professor Minada for giving us a time and sharing her own view on the topic. Then I, on behalf of Amity School of Languages, extend my sincere gratitude to Professor Padmakali Banerjee, our Pro Vice Chancellor, Amity University, Gurugram, to allow us for this conducting seminars. We remain indeed indebted to Professor Yuan Singh, Dean Faculty of Arts, Amity University, Gurugram, for conceptualizing this webinar. Thank you all IT team, all people from other sides for smooth conduct of the webinar. All my colleagues of ASL deserve special thanks for giving me a chance and helping me out whenever I required. Finally, the audience has been exceptional because with the discipline and extremely engagement as seminar, without an engagement, a seminar cannot be as successful. Thank you, everyone.